A volcano in Oregon is climbing faster than at any recorded point in 2.5 decades of observation. 213,072 Americans live inside the zone where that matters. Most of them have never encountered the word lahar. 3 miles west of South Sister, a section of forest larger than the entire city of Portland is being shoved upward by something operating deep underground. A seismometer fixed to a ridge called the Husband, sitting 1.25 miles from the exact center of that dome, has been registering microtremors 4 miles beneath the surface every year since 2021. The Pacific Crest Trail passes directly over the swelling ground. And the town of Sisters, Oregon, sits 30 minutes downstream of a glacier-fed waterway blocked by nothing more than a pile of compressed debris and loose stone. But the detail that reframes everything is not in the current numbers. In 2017, the story was declared dead. The ground was barely moving. 0.5 centimeter per year. Scientists were finalizing the summary report. Then the summer of 2020 arrived, and a satellite passing 430 miles above Oregon recorded the Earth drawing breath again. 2.2 centimeters in 14 months. On top of a system that was supposed to be exhausted. The scientist currently leading the Cascades Volcano Observatory said something publicly that changes how you read the entire history of this place. This has probably been happening for far longer than the record captures. The instruments capable of seeing it simply did not exist before now. So the real question is not what is happening under Central Oregon today. The real question is how long it was already happening before anyone had the tools to notice. Here is the full timeline. The one that was never laid out in a single place. 1997, 3 miles west of South Sister, the Earth begins to swell. No sensor captures it as it occurs. No warnings are issued. No journal entries are filed. Just silent upward pressure on ancient rock. By 2000, the uplift rate reached 5 centimeters annually. Roughly the pace of a human fingernail. Applied across a circular patch of wilderness 12 miles from edge to edge. In 2001, USGS analysts pulled up archived radar satellite data and rerun the calculations. What they find shifts the entire story. 5 centimeters of rise had already built up over the 4 years prior. Fully undetected. The Earth had been in motion for years before a single instrument recorded it. That October, a helicopter carried a GPS unit and a seismometer up to the Husband, a 7,524-foot ridgeline peak, 1.25 miles from the deformation center. For the first time, the system has something watching it around the clock. Data flows in for the next 16 years. The rate builds. Plateaus. Then around 2017 it begins sliding toward zero. The scientific picture solidifies. The dome is winding itself down. Summer 2020. That picture cracks. By August 2021, another 2.2 centimeters have been added to the record. By early 2022, another 0.5 centimeter on top of that. Standing here in 2026, the total stacked rise measures 30 centimeters. Nearly 12 full inches. Spread across a surface area that exceeds Portland. And the numbers have not turned downward. Put this on a map. Central Oregon. 3 hours by road from Portland heading southeast. The Cascade Range runs like a wall through the state north to south, and near its ridgeline 3 volcanic summits stand in sequence. North Sister. Middle Sister. South Sister. 10,358 feet. Wrapped in glacial ice. The geologically youngest of the 3. The one that federal hazard assessments rank as the most consequential. The dome is not centered beneath the peak. It is positioned 3 miles off to the west, buried inside wilderness with no roads cutting through it and almost no dedicated monitoring equipment overhead. 23 miles to the east, downwind, Bend, Oregon. 109,389 residents within the city boundary. 15 miles north of the swelling ground, the town of Sisters. 3,500 people live along Whitechuss Creek, a waterway that begins its descent from a glacier on South Sisters' northern face and covers the distance to downtown Sisters in fewer than 30 miles. Robertsfield Regional Airport lies 12 miles north of Bend. The Pacific Crest Trail cuts directly across the dome. And here is the thing that sets this apart from every other volcanic hazard story in the western United States. The Three Sisters Zone contains one of only 2 documented active ground uplifts anywhere along the entire Cascade Range. It appears on the Federal Register of 18 volcanoes the United States classifies as carrying a very high threat. And the source of all this deformation, the body sitting 6 to 7 kilometers underground and pushing 30 centimeters of rock upward, is not the mountain visible from any road. It is a magmatic mass with no assigned name, no surface feature, and no marker on any publicly available chart. Dr. John Major, the lead scientist at the USGS Cascades Volcano Observatory, confirmed on the record that this movement is entirely undetectable to any person standing on the ground above it.
No sensation.
No visible signal. The deformation is documented, active, and measurable, and completely beyond human perception without technology. The physics, stated simply, goes like this. Molten material is being driven upward along fracture lines extending from far below the crust. At approximately 4 miles down, it encounters a geological layer it has no way through. Blocked, it fans out sideways. It accumulates. The pressure that builds beneath the overlying rock pushes that rock steadily upward, the way a fist pressed beneath a blanket lifts the surface without tearing it. Each time the system surges, the terrain above it climbs a fraction higher. The rock between it and the open air grows a fraction thinner. But none of that is the most urgent part of this story. The sharpest danger does not require a single lava flow. South Sister holds glaciers across its upper elevations. And 5 times within the past 100 years, ice-formed lakes high on the mountain have let go without any warning at all, releasing sudden torrents of water, rock, and debris down the slopes below. Collier Lake in the early 1940s. Diller Lake in 1970. A destructive flash flood on October 7, 1966. Not one of those events made it as far as Sisters. The modeling says the next failure could. Hazard simulations run by the USGS calculate that a debris flow moving down Whitechus Creek would reach the town of Sisters somewhere between 30 minutes and 1 hour after the dam gives way. 30 minutes. For a community of 3,500 residents who have never once drilled for this scenario. Most of them have no idea the threat is real. Think about a regular Wednesday morning in Sisters. A person behind a shop counter picks up a sound coming from outside. Something unfamiliar. Heavy. Continuous. They move toward the front door. The leading edge of the flow is already crossing into town. The destruction does not stop at the city line. First comes the backcountry. The Pacific Crest Trail runs across the dome. A phreatic blast, a sudden underground steam explosion, the identical process that ripped open Yellowstone's Biscuit Basin without a single precursor sign in July 2024, could detonate beneath trail users with no eruption required. No warning signal. No time between the sound and the event. Then Sisters. 3,500 people downstream of a debris dam that has given way before and holds no permanent guarantee. Then Bend. Over 100,000 residents who, during a rock mesa-level explosive episode, could be buried under 1 to 2 inches of abrasive volcanic glass. Glass that destroys small engines. Overwhelms air filtration. Closes Roberts Field for weeks on end. Poisons the Bridge Creek drinking supply. Then Deschutes County. Every one of the 213,072 residents falling inside the hazard boundary. The fastest expanding county in Oregon this decade. Thousands of newcomers settling into the impact zone every year, into a place with no coordinated evacuation strategy timed to a 30-minute alarm. Then the flight lanes above. The air corridor running Seattle to Portland to San Francisco crosses directly over the Cascades. Mount St. Helens grounded it for weeks in 1980. A meaningful eruptive sequence at South Sister closes the same sky, this time over passenger volumes that have multiplied more than 4 times over since then. What follows is the one part no dataset can resolve. The dome could slow and flatten the way it almost did in 2017 and stay dormant for another generation. The mass detected at 6 kilometers could prove to be pressurized water and dissolved gas rather than rising magma. If so, the most probable outcome is a localized steam rupture on the surface, lethal for anyone nearby on the trail, but bounded in its reach. Or the filling continues. 2,000 years back, an eruptive cycle in this exact area dragged a 5-mile gash of volcanic black glass across South Sister's southeastern face. The Devil's Chain. Formed alongside 20 individual eruptive domes in one uninterrupted sequence. That record is carved into the landscape and visible from orbit today. Dr. Major has said publicly that anything approaching that scale would announce itself well in advance. Mounting tremors, sharply accelerating uplift, gas readings rising at the surface. He said in the same recorded session that this system has in all likelihood been active far longer than the instruments reflect, because instruments precise enough to catch it are a recent development. Both of those statements stand. Neither cancels the other out. Why did the ground begin rising again in 2020, the precise year the rate was calculated to reach nothing? What is the implication of the fact that the seismic monitor nearest to the deformation center is attached to a summit that is itself being pushed upward toward the satellites it transmits to? And what does a workable warning system look like for a town with a 30-minute ceiling, when the thing that triggers it is a glacier with no live surveillance? What 213,000 people face on the eastern side of the Cascades is not the volcano from the film posters. It is a creek. A natural dam assembled from rubble. A glaciated peak. And a magmatic system that has been operating beneath the trees on its own schedule, indifferent to ours. And right now, on a steel enclosure bolted into bare rock on a ridge called the Husband, a green indicator light pulses on a 30-second interval. The ground has not stopped climbing. The sensors have not gone quiet. And the system everyone declared finished is still, without announcement, building pressure.